Hello everybody. CoKo here with some Let's Play. Today we got Myst. So it's been a few days since I streamed anything, and I'm in the thick of it with Baldur's Gate, and I was missing the game and excited for my next time to play. And so it should have been today, and it should have been now. But I don't know. I'm just after a few days off, I'm feeling like I needed to, I don't know, gradually come back to it. And I got the impulse to try something else just to occupy some time. And I recently bought the Myst remake when it was on sale. And so I figured I'd just mess around in there, show it off a bit. No harm done, no foul. So let's get to it and I'll talk about it. I only loaded it up just to set the graphics options and resolution and whatnot, but I haven't actually played it at all yet. Oh, interesting. I'm not new to Myst. I'll talk about that in a second. Let me do the randomized one. That could be cute. I do not hear audio. Should I have audio?
I realized the moment I fell into the fissure that the book would not be destroyed as I had planned. It continued falling into that starry expanse of which I had only a fleeting glimpse. I've tried to speculate where it might have landed, but I must admit that such conjecture is futile. Still, questions about whose hands might one day hold my Myst book are unsettling to me. I know my apprehensions might never be allayed, and so I close, realizing that perhaps the ending has not yet been written.
I'm using a controller because I played the Riven remake a few months ago on the stream, and I'll talk about that too. And I tried mouse and keyboard, and it was totally great. But because you're getting a first-person perspective view with a character that you're maneuvering through a space, a fully realized 3D space, it makes for a good, controller opportunity. And it's not a first-person shooter where you have to like use your thumbs to precisely aim things. Which is where I struggle with controllers as a main system. So I think controller will work just fine. I'm pretty sure that I own every version of Myst ever made. So they hooked me as a kid playing the original Myst, and ever since then I've just been buying Myst over and over again. I don't even want to think about how much money that adds up to, and I don't mind because I love the game studio and I love the game. Alright. So let's put ourselves in the shoes of ourselves. And this little introduction was not present in the original Myst game. And so adding an introduction just does change, your player's experience with it and the narrative a bit. So in the original Myst, you're just presented with a book that occupies the entire screen and an animating video screen within the book, and you're offered a hand icon like this to touch it. So you can imagine yourself like in any environment, discovering this book. Like, you're just walking down the street and there's a book and you pick it up and you see this image, this moving image, and you touch it, and then you're like, what? Yeah, so I did, and then you end up here. So I did Riven on the stream, and I got the Riven remake like right when it was released. And I tried it, and I was excited to show it off, and I didn't keep up with it on the stream. I could always go back to it. I think a lot of my content will end up being primarily accessed through the YouTube preserved videos anyway. So even if like years have gone by, you could always just watch them in order as if they came out, consecutively, so it won't matter. But what happened was, because I have such a history with these games and I like them so much, I kind of just like took 2 steps and talked for 10 minutes like I'm doing now. I took another 2 steps and talked for 10 minutes. Like, I just couldn't help but, provide my thoughts and commentary on like what I was seeing and like my own kind of history with the game and analysis of the game as in and of itself, not just the remake. And so I'll do a similar thing with Myst, but I'll also try and just kind of walk around and explore more while I'm doing it, which is easier with Myst than Riven in a way. But yeah, so like in the original Myst, the immersive aspect of it is like, you're just, see this book and you touch it and you end up here, and now you're like, what? I'm here. No explanation, no intro narrator, and that changes it a lot, because even that narration, while vague, at least sets up the idea that this book, somebody dropped this book, and you're following a story, and some poetic notion of an ending that is yet to be written, which was a line from the original Riven ending, where it makes much more sense. So yeah, whether you're playing this for the first time in this version or, back in the day in 1993 or 2 or whatever it was, the CD-ROM version with the the point and click interface to maneuver through a series of nodes of pre-rendered images, you're likely to, starting from the dock, either just continue walking down the dock, or maybe you turn and you come into this room and like, you interact with whatever you can interact with. So you press this button and you're like, what the fuck is this? But yeah, the music was so nicely done. Very atmospheric, very conducive to just like emotive exploration, casual exploration. So yeah, even if you're going to, by virtue of exploration, see these things. Okay, cool. So the way they've done it is you have an interaction screen when you're on controller. So you can put in random numbers and try stuff, and you go, Let's see what this does. And you get nothing, and then you're like, okay. Water turbulent pool. Let's do the topographical extrusion test. Extrusion test. Extrusion test. That was 40. Got to remember the number. It will take a little bit to get used to these controls. Cool. Yeah, and this was all present in the original game. And so you could intuit certain things, like, you know, topographical extrusion test. You enter it in, you see this, which, you know, you kind of recognize. You're on, if you walked around a little bit, it helps. You're on an island, and this is like, you know, a topographical map of the island. Okay, gotcha. Doesn't tell you much about why you're here or what you're trying to do, but it just, you know, gets you comfortable with this interaction pattern, gets you exploring. Yeah, one of the things I talked about was like the control system and its kind of feel with these types of puzzles and worlds. And because this game was designed and, you know, used in mouse and keyboard, or just mouse really, not even keyboard, you know, click interface, and the puzzles are all around that, you don't really need more. And, you know, being over the years, I've played every version of Myst. Real Myst came out like 2000 something. So like the idea of a full Myst island that you could roam around freely in, I've had plenty of experience in. And I remember when Real Myst came out, immediately I got the vibe that, like, you know, less is more for this type of thing, because being offered the opportunity to fully explore everything, when what they had given you in the point-and-click limited node exploration was enough, just means you have more noise to deal with. And in a game like Myst, like Riven is a little different, which I talked about in that stream, because Riven, the design of everything on the island contributes to your understanding of the world, which is necessary for the puzzles. So being able to explore and like look at everything in detail and get different points of view on objects can help. But in Myst, that wasn't really the case. Maybe this version that came out in 2020, you know, we'll see what they've done in that angle. But there's you don't strictly, like, the game isn't made better by being you know, better rendered with more freedom of movement. I don't begrudge them for, you know, keeping them accessible and updating them for the times. Nah, Myst is a classic game and offers a lot, and, you know, enabling it for VR and whatnot, if people like it, what's the harm? So I got no problem with that, and I'm happy to give them, you know, my money for the stuff they do. Alright, so there's a zoom button too. But this was one of the things where this page was not on a rock that you know, stood up. It was like on the ground, very easy to miss. And it's the key to the entire game, to getting it started. And so I remember it was a very popular game in the early days of, you know, PC games. In the early days of PC, I should say, because like people having a personal computer at home, you know, a family computer, was pretty new at the time of this game. It was like just at the point where it was new enough, where it was like common enough to have enough people buying it to be like a popular culture thing, but still not commonplace. Um, and so there's a lot of experimentation with games those days. Nobody knew what to do, and like there's a lot of people who bought this game because how do you even figure out what PC game to get? And so the fact that this was popular and talked about, and like if you went to a gaming store, they're like, well, this is, people like Myst. It's being very widely sold. Here, try it. And then you get the game and you get no explanation of what to do, and you walk around, and if you miss this, then you're lost. And I remember a lot of kids that talked about the game being like, I never found that. I didn't know what to do. I just walked around lost. And that's fine. Like, I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all. But it's just kind of like an interesting historical like fact about a very popular game that so many people just miss the thing that tells you how to start learning what to do. There's a lot of things about like older games where I appreciate the willingness to let players figure it out, and that might mean not figuring it out. I think letting people not figure things out is actually an important part of gaming that maybe we need to bring back, especially when it comes to RPGs. Of course, puzzles too. But like the willingness from developers to allow players to get things wrong or just incomplete, I think is huge. Like for example, like FromSoft RPGs, they don't have a quest log to remind you to do something that a character said vaguely. So if you do it, you're rewarded with that quest line. And if you forget, if you didn't write it down, if you lost track of it, too bad. You don't get that experience. That's great. So yeah, I'll kind of like, as if you were playing it for the first time, your experience is very much just exploring the island. You interact with these little switches. You don't know what they are. You see them. You click on them. And you're like, okay, there's this stuff. There's a tree. Let's just assume that you didn't find the letter, at least not at first, the note. And you just walking around experiencing these other elements. Now there are some things that being a fully 3D game makes easier, like when you have like point and click nodes. This type of interaction here was a little clumsy. Like you'd have to kind of turn left and right and then click to get close up to activate each of these imagers. And it can be a little tricky to like figure out which one you're even looking at. And then like kind of going between them if you needed to refresh on what you were looking at and or get a closer look. That could be tricky. So so not every little thing was better with point and click and a node-based traversal mechanism. But yeah, the thing like anyone would like notice when playing Myst is that it's kind of a world that doesn't feel like historical, right? It's kind of abstract. There's Greek columns in the middle of this island with like a neoclassical or classical style building, and then like a mountain with a sort of space age metallic object on top. So none of this stuff feels organic. It feels like it's been placed here, but you don't know why or what it's for. It's kind of a neat like experience to have. because it offers you no like intuitive way to make sense of what you're seeing. Which is different from like Riven, where it's like a real world that has a history to it that you can figure out. But yeah, why, like, there's no intuitive logic as to like why anybody would put this stuff here. And even when you know Myst, like the only intuitive logic is kind of the one that there is. Like Myst is like just like a almost like an archaeologist's like collected world, constructed world of like fun things. And that's definitely something that like they got, they where Myst improves upon the concept offered by Myst, where Riven improves upon the concept offered by Myst, is like the storytelling within the world. Like that's clear from Myst that they wanted that to be a core component. But it's like a little bit kind of clumsy. Not clumsy. It's just that the puzzles, the interaction between the puzzles and the story, leans more towards the puzzle side of things because it's a puzzle game. So you kind of metagaming know you're interacting with a puzzle. Like the things are put there to be puzzles, not because they have a history within the world. And then like with Riven, it's a little bit better of a mix. And so it's ambiguous as to whether or not something's there because, the game designers needed to create a puzzle system for you to learn about or interact with, versus if it's about the story of what's going on there. And that's a very pleasant interaction to have, where you don't know. It makes the puzzle more fun. But here, yeah, you can read about the story behind all the worlds. And the story doesn't end up... hold on a sec, let me try and interact with this. Yeah, it's a separate set of controls you need when you're interacting with an object. So I can't use the left control stick, which moves the character around, because that'll exit out of this book interaction. You just gotta, learn it and then you're fine. So yeah, as a kid, like, I read all these, of course. And it was fun, like learning the backstory to these worlds. You don't strictly need to, like, there's a couple cases where you need to identify the pages corresponding to a puzzle. But those are a bit in isolation to the rest of the story. But this is another example of something that a lot of players might not have found, because there's the way you interacted with this bookshelf in the original game. You click on stuff and all the books appear burnt, and then you click on them and then they are, and the ones that aren't are very easy to miss. Whereas they've done a more intentional job of visualizing the non-burnt books so that they catch your eye, and that you're more likely to click on them because they look like they might have more to them than the rest of them, which are all kind of similarly visualized as being burnt and nondescript. So that helps you. Yeah, and I think like the Myst series, there's a lot of exploration-based stumbling upon stuff, in addition to the logical, here's the set of information you have, solve the puzzle. And Riven 2, there's like those moments where you got to close a door and go, oh, there's a pathway behind the closed door, and all I needed to do all this time was just close the door I just walked through to find that. Like, do you call that a puzzle? It's a different type of puzzle, and it's not the one that like a lot of like serious puzzle enthusiasts find as appealing as like the logical stuff. Like, I have all this information. Now let me derive a solution. But I find that having both present in the game are fun because the game is not just puzzles in isolation. It's an exploring a world, and some of exploring a world means fumbling around and finding stuff. But like if it's too hard to find, then you run the danger of no one ever finding the thing or clicking on it. And if it's too easy, then what was the point? So it's a tough design space for puzzle designers. Something like this though, like where you've made the books more prominent, no problem. Like the goal isn't to click on every single book until you find the ones that aren't burnt, like I did as a kid, because when you're a kid, you have no time constraints in your mind. You're playing the game and that's all you're doing. And if it just means clicking on things until you find the thing that works, that's time well spent. But I think as like adults, especially, the way society is developed, it might be considered like tedious to click through every single book and go, oh, that one's burnt, that one's burnt, that one's burnt. Oh, look, this one's not burnt. Like, you'd be very disappointed if they required you to do it that way. So I think like giving more of a quick path in works. And again, how much do you watch of these videos is probably a cultural adaptation. Back when the game was originally released, I think people had the patience to watch anything presented to them until the end. Especially when it came to computers, because they were themselves pretty new. And game design was very in its infancy of like conventions. So I remember, like, as a kid, kind of trying to learn the way the static was being shown and trying to recognize when the video was itself looping, even if it was just static. But yeah, you mess around and you do that, and you notice something different. Yeah, I much prefer the video with an actor than the rendered video. They're able to make it a little clearer. Like when you put one page in, it's still staticky, but there's a clear and obvious difference from when there were no pages, and you hear a bit more directly what's being said, of like, bring me blue pages. So, okay, now you have a quest, a purpose. Bring in blue pages. Where do you get the blue pages? Well, I don't know, but you got to bring them. But in Riven, I think it makes more sense that this stuff is all rendered because you actually interact with characters throughout the game. Whereas in Myst, this is your only form of interaction. And so you could really stick with the video. And I like those better. I like them a lot better in Riven too. Like the nuance of communication that you can get when it's a human emoting on camera is much greater than Unreal 5 engine rendered video.
You must help me. Bring me a red page. I can't see. Need a red page. You must. Please bring me. Beg of you, bring page.
Hey, this guy wants red pages. So when we follow up on the note that we found and enter the number of markers, of switches into the imager, we get the secret message that Atris left for Catherine, which tells us, if you've forgotten the key or whatever code, remember the tower rotation, which points you as a player to this. And from messing around on the island, you can quickly figure out that activating the switches so that they're up makes this thing stop on them. And you don't quite know more what that means yet, but it's another step in the puzzle solving process. So there's a lot of things you can just figure out from trial and error and exploration, which is, one of the things I think grabbed people's interest with the Myst games, of like that thrill of trying something and seeing a different result and then getting what it might mean. It's very fun. Now, like a lot of players, I think if they miss that note, they could probably still figure out that this is happening, that this thing being rotated is now like stopping at points of interest related to switching the marker. So you can make progress even if you don't find the note. But like it requires a little more patience to just kind of like try and figure stuff out. But it is possible. So yeah, this version asked me if I wanted to randomize puzzles, and this is probably included in the randomization. But if you didn't, this is another example of something that doesn't seem like it has any business existing in the world outside of being a puzzle to a player playing the game. So Myst makes you pretty aware that you're playing a game and not just like living in the world. A game like Riven is a little more immersive from that perspective. But yeah, if you're playing Myst for the first time and just wandering around, you have no idea what to make of this. So you can mess around and try stuff to no avail. And you're like, okay, that did nothing. So they've done this differently. I don't know which version of Myst they made this adaptation, But again, it's to try and clarify like what you're up to, and in this case, also maybe deal with the fact that you have a fully 3D world. But if I remember correctly, the original Myst, the painting was a toggle between going through into the tower and going outside. And yeah, it's like, you know, a bit weird, which is fun for a player to go, why would that happen? And there's a bit of like a explanation behind it. It doesn't totally jive, but it's, you know, you can come up with this idea of security, of like, okay, this is supposed to be private access to this secret, and so, you know, you close the door to the outside and then you can go into the secret through the bookshelf. So certain little things like this too also trip up Myst players, of like, you need to close elevator doors before the thing works. But I feel like the patience to try the universe of options was much more common back then. And that's not totally true. Like, there's definitely a lot of players who, like, you know, didn't figure out, oh, I just needed to close a door to make it work. Because in a puzzle game, you kind of also think, maybe I need to turn something on in order to make this work. And so you leave thinking you'll find it later, and you didn't realize it was something as silly as, like, closing the door before pressing the button. So I have some sympathy too for people who, like, just, like, left the elevator and said, oh, I guess I'll come back to this later. And then eventually we're like, well, now I'm totally stuck. Like, I don't know what to do. 302 with the icon of a key above it. So yeah, if you enter the notes into the imager, and Atris tells you through a video message, remember the tower rotation, you'll do what, you know, this, and you'll come up here and you'll see the key with a value. And if you goof around, and like, if you don't know what any of this means, and you just goof around and switch it to all the ones that you can switch it to, you'll notice that there's just a different thing here, a different key. And so, like, it's got to correspond to the thing it's pointing at in the picture of the rotating tower. And then also, to reinforce that, is this little window where you see the thing that the tower is pointed to. So this key has probably got to correspond to that specific thing. So all the breadcrumbs are here to allow you to make progress, and it's fun and rewarding. So when we looked through the window, we saw down onto a building. We didn't go in here before, but, you know, presumably if you had explored fully and you had in your mind all the things you saw, 3 numbers, you'd remember that 3 numbers was the combination on this safe. So you'd kind of figure out, okay, so that's what this corresponds to. And then you'd come here and open it, and you'd be at the next step of the puzzle. Turn the pilot light on. So we build up pressure until it releases, and there's a noise. And so you see that the pressure is causing this tree to move up and down. And you're like, what? Hey, there's something in here. Oh no, I missed it. So this interaction was clumsier in the original. I think they probably attempted to make it a little easier to manage. But yeah, if you just don't build up any pressure, this thing starts coming down. But yeah, I missed it on the way down too. So that's all part of the fun of this particular puzzle. So you try and find like a sweet spot where you give yourself some time without having to wait 100 years. That's a good amount of time. And they fine-tuned this thing with the needle that moves so you can gauge the speed at which the pressure is building. Like, those little quality of life improvements are nice to have in remakes of the game. But again, the idea of like an elevator made out of a tree, it's very abstract. It's awesome though. Like the imaginative stuff that you can do with games. I think people were blown away. And that's one of the reasons the game remains, or was and remains, so, loved. So I think if this button relieves the pressure and drops it down. Okay, only so far as to be able to get back out. So, what this is like encouraging you to figure out is that what you want to do is you want to get it on the way down. So you let it go up to a reasonably high position. And you go, okay, now let me drop the pressure and catch it on the way down. And this is where the whole controlling the timing thing can be a deal breaker. I remember playing this like as a kid and like setting it so that the timing was so slow to make sure that I caught it, which meant here where you're like waiting just for it to fully drop like took 20 minutes, but didn't care as a kid. All the time in the world. And then you get the music to reinforce that you've done something right. That's nice. I guess this is a way to get back up. I like this little space. Gives you a clue as to the world you're going. So as the game starts progressing, you figure out the conceit of it, which is that from the Myst Island, you gain access to these different worlds. There are 4 in total in the original. I saw in an update on Steam that like they've added some in these remakes, in this remake. So that'll be cool. New world to play with. And that's a brilliant concept for a game. That you get to use. I mean, using books as like a kind of metaphorical, or like to use literally. Go to experience a new world where there's like a puzzle to solve, and then you come back and do a totally different one. Like, that's awesome. Like, that's great fun. So this world is known as Channelwood, and it's written on the spine of the book, at least in this version. It wasn't in the original, but Channelwood was written within the book. So you learn that this age is called Channelwood, and if you read the book, you do get a backstory as to what the world is, and then also the interaction between Atreus and his family when they came on like vacation, just coming to these worlds and seeing what's there and getting involved with the people. So you get to learn about that, and then that's how in those the red and blue books are Atreus's sons, Cirrus and Achenar, and when you give them more pages, they tell you their names, and then you read these backstory books, and you get to learn more about them. And I'll talk about that more later. But you get more and more things start to develop as you mess around, like not just solving the puzzles, but also some, story that's building. And this is another example of a puzzle that is probably easier to deal with when it's fully 3D versus nodes that you click between, because like the continuity in your mind as a player of like which branch you're going down, I think is easier when you can control your movement through the space. But clicking and then advancing to the next screen, sometimes you click the wrong one and not know. When there's water running through there, you get the reinforcement of water to tell you that you're going down the right path. But like these little quality of life things to like help you experience the puzzle a little more naturally, organically, those are nice. So there are some points in favor of this way of experiencing the world. And I think like the Myst games are kind of classic setups for experiencing in VR too, because the whole premise is that you're just dropped into these worlds and you just got to walk around and figure them out. So doing that in VR just seems like a great fit. I still haven't really messed around with VR very much because I kind of get motion sickness quite easily, VR or otherwise. And every time I've tried VR, I get it. And if If I do it more slowly and ease into it, maybe I'll get used to the phenomenon, but haven't really felt the pull to do that. But I can see the appeal for the Myst games to be VR. It is a logical step forward in the immersion of the storytelling. Oh hey, there's a run. If I do L3 and switch to run mode, I mean, I shouldn't be surprised. So Channelwood, there's like an intuitive logic to it that I think a lot of the Myst style of puzzles rely on. You know, your real world experience with things like running water, heat, power, energy, batteries. Like they leverage that that transference of knowledge very much. You know, more abstract puzzle games like Witness to come along later, you know, they teach you the logic behind the puzzle systems, and that works too. That's a great way to do it. But the Myst series uses a lot of expectations from the real world, and I feel like Channelwood is much loved as a puzzle world in Myst, because channeling water to use the water as power is a concept that I think players immediately understand, and then it's just like the fun of executing on the concept. So you channel things towards particular ends, like this. And now that there's power through the water, you can raise this platform, which is cool. And what does that do for us? Alright, it brought us over here where there's what looks like an elevator that, you know, probably doesn't work because there's no water. So you kind of say, okay, if I want to use it, I probably need to get the water coming over here. And it's nice that they stay within the reality of this world that they've built to leverage your expectations. You know, extending this pipe so that it creates a channel for the water to come through. You know, you can't expect the player to bring water here if the point is to extend the pipe so that you can bring water here. So this is a mechanical device. You know, you're using the player character's rotational power of moving this handle. If they did anything else, it wouldn't feel right. So it's got to be that. So all that stuff is nice. It makes it feel immersive to follow through appropriately. Yeah, there's a lot of dead-end channels. And of course the first switch goes to this one over here. What does this one do? All right. Apparently nothing. Alright, so we want to go over there. Yeah, the original game didn't have, like, the sticks, which is a great idea to point the direction the water's going, make it just another visual indicator. But I remember, like, you know, again, intuitively understanding that this is blocking off that pipe, which means the water's going to be channeled that way. So that, like, inversion level of indirection was, you know, no problem. It's part of the fun as a kid, to leverage your intuition about how these things would work. So there's this one, too. Another elevator where you're like, gotta close the door. Lots of those in Myst. But yeah, Channelwood is also, I think, loved because it's just, you know, a pretty world. A forest over water with tree houses? Like, come on. Who wouldn't want to be here and explore this? Yeah, and then, you know, being able in a 3D world to, like, enjoy the view, that's great fun. And the lighting from the sun, or a sun. I shouldn't say the sun, because who knows where the fuck we are. So yeah, the mythology gets then, you know, increasingly deeper through the series and all that. Of, okay, well, what's going on? Like, why are we touching books and being able to transport ourselves to these different worlds? Where are these different worlds? And the intro to this game showed you the Starfisher, which is like, you know, the universe of worlds. And the books are linking you to them. So providing you a shortcut access to these worlds that are out there somewhere in the universe. And so, yeah, somewhere in the universe, there's a place like this. And there's a star that this place has. And Atreus and his sons were gallivanting around, having fun. And Catherine, of course. Now, if you read the backstories, you know, things didn't go so well. That's why we find these worlds in a state of ruin. And Sirius and Achenar, Atreus' sons, were a part of that demise in many cases, or taking advantage of it. So it's a way for them to provide a rationale for these worlds that you're exploring to be devoid of other interactions. Because the idea of Myst is you're just exploring this on your own, and, you know, nobody's talking to you or telling you where to go, what to do, or what happened. Like, you just figure it out like an archaeologist sifting through remains. Try and piece together what to do and where to go and what happened. So you need a little bit of story logic to bind that together. But yeah, but it was always confusing in point and click, but also in 3D, like what the map is of this tree village and how to get from one place to another. Alright, so there's the spiral staircase, which we recognize. but this one doesn't work. So we know that water could go to this spiral staircase area. So chances are we need to move it here so that we can use these things. And so you might ask yourself, okay, but how do we use these things from up here if we need the other elevator to get up and down? And that's a good question. And it might help to follow this cabling. So yeah, this is all something that is made easier possible by having a 3D world. You can follow that cable. But the same thing would be accomplished by just exploring and like looking for things to interact with and then retroactively understanding what they were. Like, oh, I get it. You know, that kind of thing. So you find, like, in the original game, there's just, you know, a bunch of these treehouse rooms, platform rooms that have nothing, and then one that has this little switch, and it opens that door. And you can see the door open, I think, from when you switch it. So you go, okay, this is just like a locking mechanism where you pull the cable and it just releases a lock or whatever. And now that's open for us to go up and down. So 2 ways up and down means that we can use one while we change the power. And we could even see, if we were wondering, that there's another level. And the directional sound is nice to have. Yeah, I very much enjoy this game, and I think it's like the proof of concept in a way for a lot of different elements of what Cyan wanted to do with the Myst series. From this side we can release the pin that opens this door, so now we can get up and down through here. So this is kind of fun. Like, I remember, you know, figuring these things out for the first time, where they set, like, the puzzle concepts can get more complex, and you know, they can invert their expectations. So they set you up with this idea that you channel water to something, and it activates the thing. And so intuitively, you might think the first time you come down here that sending water in this direction will activate the door. But that's not the case. It activates, you know, there's another pipe going up. So if you pay enough attention to the details, you'll see that the water going through doesn't actually go to the door. It goes to this pipe, which probably continues this way. And it does, because it operates that second level elevator. So they kind of fooled you a little bit. And that's fun. Like, you know, being tricked is part of the fun of puzzles. And they set this up so that it's the first fork. So you can keep the other ones intact and just change this one. But yeah, like Myst is very much a proof of concept for a lot of aspects, like of puzzle design, world design, expectation setting, all those different things. And when I was like, Myst is one of my favorite games of all time. One of my great life experiences, will always be so. and even remains to this day, you know, one of those games that you like so much, you love watching other people play it, and especially for the first time, experience it. And it's kind of like the culmination of all these proof of concepts that Myst set out, packaged together perfectly. Everything comes together, you know, where everything contributes to the final product with equal weight. And that's when I did the Riven remake stream, I just talked at length about that. Like I couldn't stop myself. Like Myst is a very good game, and you know you can't really separate its success from like its historical place, as in terms of technology and like the economics that I was talking about of being accessible at the right time, you know, golden age of gaming. Those types of things, you have to consider all the factors in it. But I give them full credit for like creating a game that prototypes all of these concepts, like, you know, puzzle and story linked together, you know, exploration of worlds, the story behind the worlds. It's all there, but it's in these discrete little venued experiences within Myst. And there's some jankiness to it on all these dimensions, on the puzzle dimension, on the story dimension. All of that's there in Myst. And then in Riven, it all gets ironed out into a composite tapestry where everything is laid down to perfection. And you know, Riven is a wonderful game, and I should get back to streaming a playthrough of Riven, because I also like would like to see the changes they made in the recent remake, the VR remake. Because Riven didn't have, I don't think, any remakes. Like Myst had a million of them. Masterpiece Edition, Real Myst, whatever else came out later. There's like 30 different versions of Myst that came out over the years. But Riven didn't get that love until very recently. So I should get back to that stream and play through it and see what they added to the game. Yep, very scary. Terrified me as a kid. Yeah, you gotta imagine like playing this in a family PC set up in the corner of some, you know, common room, and you play it when everybody else is like somewhere else and the room's all dark. The only light is the light of the TV monitor, or the computer monitor, you know, an old CRT monitor. And you're exploring this world that doesn't offer much by interaction. You're not meeting people, stuff isn't moving around wildly on the screen, and you enter a room, and all of a sudden someone talks to you. And it's very scary. But that's good stuff. And you start to think and ask questions like, you know, you recognize that face as Akinar. What's up with this? Why would this be here? What's it doing? Why is it so creepy? Hey, we found a blue page. And the guy that's in the blue book wanted that. And spoiler alert, that's Akinar.
I hope I pushed the right button, my dear brother. What a very interesting device you have here. I'm not erasing anything important, am I? Remember, he is preparing. Take only one page.
It's an interesting thing to find. So yeah, in this stream that I'm doing, I haven't really shown you the characters very well. We haven't, other than the initial page, we haven't provided any pages to the red and blue books so that they start talking to us more and tell us more about themselves. So this is an interesting order to encounter this information, but you know, it's totally possible within the game for players to have found it this way. But like, yeah, like these are all adding up to just be creepy. Like Akinar's, we'll call him Blue Book Guy because he hasn't told us his name yet. But he's got this creepy message set up over there. We come back to backstage and we find out that there's this like device here. Now, if you just use some intuition, you'll notice that the message that we first played was the one that was up there. So you go, okay, you get the idea, and if you want to confirm it, you can. You press a different button, and you go over there, and you recognize that it's changing what's presenting over there. So you go, okay, so he's got some kind of like a set of messages, and he's controlling which one is being shown in that other room. For why, you don't know. Maybe you read the book later and find out. But then one of them is the other guy, Sirius, the Red Book guy, who's leaving a message not intended for this other room, but intended seemingly for his brother, for Akinar. And so Akinar's, Blue Book guy is creepy because that message is creepy, and the language he's speaking, even though you don't know the words, like, culturally maybe it's not creepy to those listening, but when you see Akinar in the different worlds, he's creepy as fuck. So this just reinforces his creepiness. And even if you kind of say to yourself, okay, well, maybe that language and what he's saying in that language is not creepy at all, then what the hell is this thing? Like, that ain't right. And it's a disembodied head just being projected. Oh, nice, it tracks you. Whoa. That's messed up. It's really creepy that it tracks you. I don't like that. I mean, I like it, but I don't like that as in it's creepy. So, as you go through these worlds and experience these two characters, you just end up with this picture of they're both just creepy in different ways. Akinar is a bit more viscerally creepy. Like he gives off like serial killer vibes. Like we find like their bedrooms in the different rooms, or their rooms, I don't know, bedroom, whatever, their rooms in the different worlds. And Akinar's room is always disorganized and filled with like very creepy paraphernalia. But Sirius's room, the other brother, the Red Book guy, he just left an eerie message for his brother, and he also has like a more kind of haughty, I'm better than you creepiness to him. So there's something off about both of these characters, and that starts building up as you explore these worlds, which is a great dimension, because as you start giving them pages, and they become more clear to you, it becomes obvious that they're interacting with you, the player, in real time, not through some recorded message. and they start talking to you and asking you for things. So they ask you to get more pages, of course, and then they tell you more of their backstory, and they start pointing the finger at the other brother who's in the other book, and they're like, "Listen to me, not him," and they're both saying that. And so you start have to making the choice in your mind of like, okay, who do I trust? And you know, you're kind of put off by both of them. You don't know what to make of them. And each world gives you kind of the same picture if you like, depending on how you encounter the worlds and what rooms and what your state of mind is. You know, maybe you lean one way or the other. But it's only at the end when they give you kind of the ultimatum where you have to make a decision. And you find this. This is another thing that's kind of easy to miss when exploring the world. I think they've made it a little easier in the remakes, probably. I don't remember exactly where it was. In one, it's two halves of a page. I know it's in a drawer in one of the worlds. I don't remember if in Channelwood it was just out here in the open where it's easy to spot. But in any case, like there's a couple dynamics happening of the pages that you're supposed to give to these guys to make them talk more in their books, and they're asking for them. And then there's this that no one tells you about, but it's there, so you have to incorporate it into your understanding of what's happening. So we took a picture of it so we can get back to it later when we find the other half. Alright, so we found the red page in this room, so you kind of start to figure out that the room that you find the page in is probably the room that person occupied, so Sirius's room. In this world, it's not as stark a contrast, but you know, Sirius's room is always more ornate, organized, typically, and with more like classy artifacts, status artifacts. Ekinar's room is almost like a moody goth teenager, with like skulls and shit. Alright, so we came to this world and we got both pages, and one of the nice things the remakes allow you to do is to retrieve both pages in one journey. In the original game, you could only have one page in your inventory at a time, so you had to make 2 trips to the world, which really didn't enhance your experience all that much unless you like took more time to explore. But it was a bit of a tedium, so that getting rid of that tedium is actually, you know, quite pleasant. Okay, so now you say to yourself, I got what I'm here for. I would like to go deliver these pages back to the guys who were asking for them. How do I do that? So the structure of Myst starts becoming clear where, you know, first step, go to the world. Second step, figure out how to explore the world. Third step, find the pages in the world. And fourth step, get yourself back. And they all kind of fit that pattern. And so you got to ask yourself, how do we get back? Well, it's probably one of the things we didn't do yet. There's a weight here. So yeah, we had channeled water and opened up a path to an elevator that we have not yet used, so there's a decent chance that we need to make use of it. How come... Oh. Okay. And we're in. Let's go. So pretty. And beautiful. We found a book. With something. So that's what we see in the book. And this is where we end up. Yay! Alright, we got a page for each of these guys. The levels are a bit off. This audio is soft.
Don't be my brother, I beg you. Be complete. Don't. Always blue pages. Listen to him. Listen to my brother. Egotistical fool and a liar. Help me. Bring me the blue pages. Ignore the red ones. Don't bring the red ones.
Yeah, so you get the idea. And it's kind of like what I was saying before. Like, he's disheveled. It's again, it's like it's better to have the recorded video rather than the rendered video, because you get an actor performing that. He's disheveled. He's barely able to keep it together. He's got like these little bursts of anger, of rage that come out. But they both kind of communicate similar ideas. Bring me my pages. Don't bring my brother his pages.
You've returned. Thank you for bringing the red page. You must continue to help me. My name is Cirrus. Release me. I beg you to find your name. You must release me, for I release me from this book, which has become. Bring me the red page. I need more red pages, please. Beg. Don't waste time. Look.
Yeah, they tell you they've been imprisoned here, and then you got to release them. So that's also in your mind as like there's this, coming up. I gotta release one or both or something. Yeah, it seems to be what's happening. Oh, it's already there. Yeah, so we had locked on to the switch near the tree, and thus solving that puzzle got us to Channelwood. And if you go around the world, I didn't do all the switches, but there's this one here, there's this one here, and there's the spaceship one over here. And I believe they added to the game, I saw in the Steam update, another world of puzzles. And that would be kind of like what I'm interested in doing. You know, more so than revisiting the other stuff. Yeah, so I kind of wonder, like, where I might gain access to there. You know, now that I think about it, when I selected randomized mode, it gave me 302 as the safe combination. If I'm not mistaken, because I've played this game a lot, 302 is the hard-coded combination in the original game. Maybe I clicked wrong. But yeah, the rest of this, the things on island are all steps towards getting you towards the worlds. Well, that's ominous. Let's go see Catherine's message. Or the message for Catherine. So it says enter the number of marker switches. 1, 2, is it 11? 9? It's been a while. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is it 7? I guess it's 7. Maybe I missed one?
I have to leave quickly. Something terrible has happened. It's hard for me to believe. Most of my books have been destroyed. Catherine, it's one of our sons. I suspect Achenar. But I shouldn't leap to conclusions. I'll find him and Cirrus as well. I should have known not to have left my library unchecked for so long. I've removed the remaining undamaged books from the library and placed them in the places of protection. You shouldn't have to use the books until I return, but if you've forgotten the access key, remember the tower rotation, and don't worry, Catherine. Everything will be fine. I'll see you shortly. Oh, and erase this message after you've viewed it, just to be safe.
Yeah, so when you stumble upon this, it tells you a number of things. Right at the end, the erase this message after you saw it, you know, you can kind of assume that you're not Catherine in the game, and as long as you assume that, then you can think that Catherine has not yet viewed this message for whatever reason, because it hasn't been erased. And so it's been left here by Atris, and then you're kind of intercepting it. And so he gives you a setup for the backstory, which is something terrible has happened, and it's one of their sons. And he suspects Achenar, but he can't be sure. And then you get the clue towards the tower rotation for the puzzles. So you got this doubt in your mind, because there's this other character now that you've seen, and you don't quite know who to trust. Okay, yeah, so there's two corresponding two over here. I forgot this. I forgot this one here for the gears. For Gear World. Alright, let's go turn all the switches on. So I wonder where the other place will be accessed from. Maybe it's like, you know, at the end of the game. You get access to a new world. Okay, so this might be subject to the randomizer. Let's see if I remember. 205? Is that it? I really don't... No, 205 isn't right. 420? I used to know all these things. 405? Wow. I used to have all this memorized, and I've forgotten. But you know, we know how to do it by now. So we need to get over there real quick. So let's do the thingy with the thingy. Why am I going this direction? Yeah, so there isn't a direct lock for there, so it's Gear World that thing corresponds to, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. I think I'm wrong. No, I was right. 915. And then 221 is another thing we need to know. 221. I think that's the same. So what does the randomizer correspond to? But if you, in the, back before speedruns were a thing, when I was a kid playing this game, I just found out that it was fun to do a speedrun of the game without knowing that speedruns were a thing. It's actually quite an easy speedrun to do if you've played the game and beaten it, because all you got to do is switch all the marker, flip all the marker switches up, and then flip one of them down to get a secret note, and then proceed to the end. And so everything is just clicking through the world to flip the switches up. And this is the only one that's not directly accessible, that you'd have to go through the process of finding the time, or the tower secret. But in the original game, all of these values were fixed, so they were the same every time. I don't think it was 9:15. I don't think you formed a straight line on the clock. Let's see how this works with the control system. Okay, so just art. All right, so it's basically the same thing. So you pull that out, it turns the bottom two, that turns the top two. And so the key to this puzzle, and this third one, tests them, I guess, or resets them. So the key to this puzzle, you know, like, it's a nice example of a puzzle where they lure you into a false sense of understanding, where you think, okay, I get it. I rotate 2 out of 3 with this lever, and the other 2, or a different 2 with this lever, and I got to make it land on 221. But only through like trial and error can you find out that if you hold it down, can you rotate the middle one independently of the others, and you need that in order to get to 221, which I'm going to assume is why they didn't randomize that value. There's only 3 numbers, and they have a starting position, and you want to get it so that you have a final answer that requires an extra degree of rotation outside of the restriction of 2 out of 3, top 2 and bottom 2 being rotated at the same time. So 221 might be the only combination that satisfies those conditions, because otherwise you could potentially solve the puzzle just by using the levers one at a time. So we did that, and if we cared to follow through with it, it would open the gear over here. And so now we can go to Gear World, should we care to. What? Did I forget to flip up the switch? Or maybe I missed one. I flipped it up. Maybe this is part of the randomizer? So the end game secret is you flip up all of them and then flip this one down, and it opens up and gives you a secret page. So if you're doing a speed run, all you got to do is get that secret page and then proceed through to the ending. So it's like any number of things that they've done in the remake to block that off. One could be the randomizer at play, randomizing perhaps which of these things to flip down. Actually, let's take a quick look at our inventory. Whoops. Let's go to the notebook. I'm sure there's a button for that. Brick hut. Brick hut. Wait, let's put this back up. Brick hut. So it could be the randomizer, and that letter itself is generated differently. I mean, that's trivial to do so. They just have different versions of that letter to pick from. Is this the brick hut? There you go. So that's the secret page that you get. And this is the part that we probably won't be able to do with the randomizer on. You have to know which combination to enter into the fireplace, which can be found in, so there's 5 books here. The 4 of them have a name on the spine: Channelwood, Stone Ship, Salentic, and something Machine. But then there's a 5th one with no name that just shows you the fireplace. And it's kind of interesting how, like, you know, there had to be a lot of these in the original game because they didn't want you, only having 3 options and then just saying, okay, I'll just try all of them and see what happens. It needed to be so many that it disincentivized you from attempting. And you kind of knew, okay, I'm going to need to be told which one of these it is before I try. Hold on, the controls are... Oh, good. At least it keeps your place. I think this is the one. This looks right, but I'm not 100% sure. Nope. There we go. So you get told which page to look at, and you get the combination, and you go enter it in the fireplace. But now with the randomizer feature, it's trivial to randomize which page. So how do I access my notebook? I think I just did. So I can assume that they've done that. How do I remove the camera? Let me just delete this. And yeah, if you wanted to do a speed run, then you needed to have this pattern memorized, which I did. Wait, did I miss the... Hold on a sec. I think I might have picked the wrong one. Even with, without the randomizer I play. I need to double check that positioning. It opens up too. Okay, I entered it properly. I mean, it didn't do anything. So that's clearly not the correct combination. I might have been wrong in which number it was. 144. I think I was wrong in which number it was. But it's kind of a pointless exercise to try and recreate it because of the fact that I'm like a 99.5% sure that the randomizer is gonna be involved here. 192. So the reason I'm pretty sure I was wrong is because the glimpses I remember from being a kid and having the puzzle memorized, I had kind of like a rhythmic musical way of keeping track of which buttons to press, and I still have a memory of some of that, and it didn't totally match up with what I was doing. But yeah, it's a fruitless exercise because we're going to need to find the number that the randomizer has picked for us. So the only way to do that, I think, would be to proceed through the game. So we could continue through any world we like. And part of the fun of Myst and replay value is like kind of telling your own story to yourself by going through the ages in a different order. And it's kind of a silly exercise. A lot of these things in like the early days of gaming, you can see the precursor to a lot of what the gaming community in the age of the internet has created, and especially with like community content and like the world of creators. Like when I was a kid replaying Myst, I absolutely had in my mind what I consider to be like the canonical order of like what ages you should go to in what order, and also somewhat related my favorites and why they were my favorites. And so Channelwood, okay, I kind of forget exactly like what my rankings were. But certainly Channelwood is easy and fun. It's quick, and it's a cool world. Like it's a nice vibe, and the puzzle getting through it is quick and easy. Spaceship Age is the most tedious, and maybe with the quality of life improvements in the remakes, it's not as tedious, but it's very tedious, and so that is a factor. Like it's a cool world, but with the control system and the type of puzzle. You had to be precise with like setting the audio frequency to things, and then the final like railway puzzle, is very tedious and takes a long time. So it's a cool world, and like the types of puzzles, the sonic puzzles that you have to do on that world, it's a whole audio world. So all the puzzles are audio related. That makes it very interesting and fun, but it's like one kind of arbitrary because you got this world with all these different audio environments that are just like next to each other, like, and with no kind of rhyme or reason or story behind it, other than what the book can tell you, and like it's a quite tedious world. So I think I remember like do it last, save it for the end. And it's not as much fun. Whereas Channelwood is like aesthetically pleasing, simple, and the puzzle's easy to get in and out of. So yeah, maybe do it first. I don't remember what my order was. But I mean, that's the kind of thing that content creators would go wild with if the game were brand new this day and age. tier listing your Myst worlds. Yeah, I think I'll just end the stream. I don't know if I'm gonna continue playing through. I might do it maybe on like afternoons where I don't feel like playing whatever else I have actively going, which is Baldur's Gate 3 for me right now. And I like Baldur's Gate 3 very much. I want to continue playing it, so I'll get back to that soon. But today I just kind of felt like mixing it up. I needed to ease back into streaming after a few days off where I was doing other stuff. But one of the things that I liked as the Myst series developed, I mean, Riven is, you know, my favorite game of the series and one of my favorite games ever made, and can't say enough good things about it. But just this concept of kind of linking to puzzle worlds that are self-contained, which is unlike Riven, it has a lot of value in and of itself. And when I was in college is when Myst Uru came out, and like I was very sold on the idea of an ever on a continuing world where you have a base setup and then you can go to all worlds, and then you have like, you know, a subscription fee or something, and every so often a new world drops, a new puzzle drops. And then the community aspect of it, of like doing that with buddies, and then maybe you get community created worlds. It seems like a rock solid concept for a game that lives on, and that's all made possible because of the core concept of Myst, which is, you know, linking books that take you to worlds that have puzzles in them. So the longevity of this game is immense, and that's just a testament to the idea and execution of it. So, you know, even though, like, you know, Riven surpasses Myst as a puzzle game in every way, like, you know, what this game did for gaming is worth remembering. And like, that's one of the reasons I like buying all the new versions and keeping it alive, just because it's such a great achievement, and it's fun to revisit. And, you know, I might come back to this stream in a bit, so stick with me. We'll be back to Baldur's Gate soon, and then when I get a chance, I'll show off more of the worlds of Myst. Be well, everyone. See ya.